Welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Well, welcome back to part 2 of making Brie cheese. I've just done a second turn. If you remember back from the previous video, things were looking a little bit messy. The curd was sticking to the mat. I think I'd left it too long without turning it. Well, this time, each time I turned it, I cleaned the mats, removed any of the curd, or most of the curd that was stuck in the holes and whatever, and they're starting to look a little better. They're more solid and uniform on the top anyway, and I'm sure that the weight of the curd is helping it down below. So I'll bring you back and show you the third turn in a few hours' time. Well, it's 12:30 a.m. and time to do the third turn. Well, that's working better, finally. No more curd on that one sticking to the mat, anyway. Fortunately, that wasn't the cheese. Seems to be going much nicer. And the side now is the side that was quite rough the first time there. The mat got stuck, so that problem seems to have been solved, I guess. Okay, didn't drain a lot of whey has come out. They're still not even down to half though. Well, the next turning will be at 4:30 a.m. and I'm not going to be videoing that one. That'll be the time, if I ever dump one on the floor, that it'll happen. No, I hope not. But I will see you back here in the morning. Let's see, the next one will be the third, so in the morning for the fifth time. Hopefully they will have shrunk down quite a bit by then. Well, good morning everybody. I did my 4:30 turning. They're down now to, at least halfway down. So it shouldn't take too many more turns, I guess, before they're ready to be salted. And they're much easier to turn now too. There they are, all turned once again. Always seems to be a lot more whey come out immediately after you turn them. Must be trapped in there somewhere, I guess. I won't bother bringing you back for any more turnings until they're ready to be salted, but I think that won't be too far from now, sometime later today anyway. I think I've lost track of how many times I've turned it now, but I've been turning it every 2 hours all day, and I think I've come to the end of it. I'm going to salt them. I tried my best to get them all, putting the same amount, but I still think this one here is larger than the others, so hopefully everything will be all right. If you look at the recipe, they say to use a coarser salt, which I don't really understand. The same company sells what they call cheese salt, and it's as fine as can be. But anyway, any non-iodized salt, what I'm using is called pickling salt, which is also kosher. You could use kosher salt, the one that is sold as kosher salt. All that means is there's no additives, it's just pure salt. And you rub it in the top and then around the sides. That was a half teaspoon, by the way, that I put on top of each one. The sides sort of get done twice. This will now sit for 6 hours, and that will bring more whey out of it also. The salt will cause more whey to leave. But at the end of 6 hours, you flip and do the same thing over again. And since that will be around midnight, I probably won't film that one. But I'll bring you back tomorrow morning. These will be out at in the room air, I guess 23 degrees Celsius still overnight, and with the salt that will draw out some more of the whey. So, there they sit. I'm through flipping anyway. We'll see what happens. Well, they had their second salting around midnight, and early this morning I moved them into my cheese fridge, and the temperature is set from 58 to 64 degrees. That's the temperature range, and right now I've got mine at about 61. I've had to do some adjusting. It wasn't running that warm, so I'll watch it for the next few hours to make sure that I have it at that temperature. But the idea here is to dry them off completely and at a cooler temperature, so I'm able to turn the heat down in my house again, and that is the target temperature, 58, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. I will turn them probably a couple of times a day, and this will take 2 to 3 days until they are thoroughly dry. So I'll bring you back once they have completely dried. They seem to have the temperature quite stable at around 61 degrees, and I've just added a hydrometer, a very inexpensive one. The humidity level in there should be between 55 and 65%. And right now it's reading 60%, so that's pretty good. It's in the target range anyway. I'll keep an eye on it. In the house here, there's another inexpensive hydrometer, but it's 55% in the house, so the extra humidity, I guess, in there is coming from the water that's evaporating off of the cheese. But that is something that I forgot to mention, so I thought I'd add this little clip. You have to also watch the humidity level. If you can hear me above the fridge humming away there, they have been in there now for 36 hours, a day and a half, and I think they are dry enough. The danger, whatever, of having a wet surface, it can cause the skin to slip off of the cheese, the skin of white Penicillium candidum. When it develops, like that nice white rind that you see on the ones you buy in the shop, it can develop a lot of liquid under that, and it will slip off when you cut it. It's still quite edible. My preference, well, shouldn't be making that preference now because it's hard to say what mine will look like when I finish. I like mine relatively solid the whole way through. I guess if it's a little soft in the center it would be fine, but I prefer mine a little more solid than what you normally see. These have been drying, and they're quite dry to the touch. I mean, they're still a little tacky, whatever. I don't think they're ever going to be completely dry. All right, there we are. But if you can see here, it's even getting a little yellow around the edges where it's drying. So I am going to take them out, put them in a plastic container with mat and boards and whatever, and then they'll go back in the cheese fridge, and the temperature will be lowered to 54 degrees, I think it is, but I'll show you that in a minute. Well, there they are in my ripening box. There's two of those bamboo boards below the bamboo mats, and as long as the cheeses aren't touching each other or touching one of the walls of the container, they should be all right. And sealing them in here should really increase the humidity. The target humidity is, if I can find it written out here somewhere, 90 to 94%. Well, my hydrometer won't fit inside of there to give me a reading, but as long as they're good and moist, and the temperature of 52 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. So that I'll be able to do with the cheese fridge. I will close them up, and they will go inside the cheese fridge, and I will adjust the temperature until I get it where I want it. And I'll bring you back in 2 or 3 days' time. We should start to see the first development. According to what I have been reading, that would be the Geotrichium candidium. Will start to develop on the surface. It says that's preparing the cheese for the Penicillium candidum. So time will tell. Hopefully we get something out of this that can be eaten. Well, there they are in the cheese fridge. I guess what I haven't mentioned is at this stage I will be turning them once a day, which should be adequate. Once the molds, the white molds, really start to develop, they have to be turned at least twice, if not 3 times a day. In experience of the past making camembert, I forgot to turn them for a day or most of a day, and the mold grew down through the bamboo mat, so when you went to turn it, it tore off part of the mold. Not too much of a problem. It grows back quite quickly because it's growing quite actively at that time, but you get a much nicer looking cheese if you turn them more frequently at that time. But right now there's no molds growing, so once a day will do for turning them over, I guess. Well, the cheese has had its full 3 days so far in the fridge inside this container, and I hope you can see it. It's just starting to form a light fuzzy mold on the surface, and according to the instructions, that is the geotrichium, however you want to pronounce it, and it is preparing the way for the Penicillium candidum to start to grow. I'm turning it daily. Once the Penicillium one starts to produce, I'll turn it at least twice a day, because that one can do quite quickly, can move on quite quickly. So these are going to get turned and put back in the cheese fridge. Seem to have the temperature right anyway. Things are starting to develop. And I think that will probably conclude part 2 of this little adventure. I'll get this uploaded and put onto YouTube, and we'll move on. The next one, part 3, should see the full development of it to at least to the point where where I can wrap it. Hope it continues to develop as it is doing now. Thank you for watching.